Hi, it's Carly McAvoy talking about logic. This is the third part of the logic series, and we're just talking about how in certain instances you want to group together with parentheses parts of your symbolic statement. So here we want to say, if these two things happen, then this thing will happen. But on the other hand, we could say, if this happens and this leads to that, right? So it's important of what we group together there, because see how these are the same Q, negation of P, negation of R, but by changing the symbols, it can change the meaning. This first one again, if Q and not P, then not R. Q, and if not P, then R. So that's a little different. So notice that it's helpful too to look at the commas. When we put the commas in English, it separates the simple statements from the parentheses. All right, in the parentheses. Okay, so example, here's my three statements. A student misses lectures, P. Q is a student studies, and R is a student fails. So we want to look at these in symbols and say, what does this actually mean? Well, this is an if-then, so we want to say if, for sure, because this is an if-then. If the student studies, because Q is a student studies, if a student studies, this is the conjunction and, I don't know why I put a T, studies, and what's this mean? This means they do not miss the lecture, and a student does not miss a lecture. Then, and that's why I'm going to put a comma, because that's where my parentheses ends. Then what? The student does not fail. So R is fail, so this is not. Then I should say D or A, I don't know. Then the student does not fail. So they have to do these two things. They can't miss lecture, and they have to study. And if they do those two things, then they won't fail. Does that make sense? On the other hand, Q and blah, 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 blah. Q is a student studies. Okay, so we have to think about where's the parentheses. Parentheses is going to be after that. So a student studies, and because I'm connecting this with the and if, what is not P? Well, that's if they don't miss a lecture, and if the student does not miss lectures, then that student will not fail. It's easier going, I think, from symbols into English than going the other way. See if you can do this one. I'll give you a second. I won't write it out, but I'll say it in a minute. You write it down. So in this case, a student fails comes first, and that's the if-then. So if a student fails, comma, then a student misses lecture and they do not study. That's what that says. If a student fails, then they miss lecture and they do not study. All right, so whenever we're talking about the dominance of connectives, and they're in bold here, but I'm not sure that you can see it. If I have P then Q and negation of R, if I group that this way, then you can see that it's clarified. These are all statements that aren't really clear. Am I saying Q if and only if R, or am I saying P implies Q if and only if R? I don't know until I put the parentheses in. So whenever you have a statement with multiple connectives, you need to, if it's not clear what you mean, then you have to put parentheses in, just like you do in any other type of math. You put parentheses in to make things meaningful. So you can see where the dominant, once you put parentheses around it, the dominant is that conditional, right? Or the biconditional. So the biconditional and the conditional, frequently you'll see that they're the dominant ones. If I have something like this, P and Q or R, that meaning is ambiguous unless we were to put parentheses in there. So it's important for us to know what we're talking about. All right. I'm sorry I messed up on this and I just used the printed copy that I have, so hopefully you can read this, but I want to show you 3 things. If P is I am healthy, Q, I eat junk food, and R, I exercise regularly. So the first one that I finally figured out here is if I am not healthy, I eat junk food, or I do not exercise regularly. So not healthy, this is healthy, so I'm not healthy. If I'm not healthy, then, and here's where I'm going to connect these 2 things. I eat junk food, which is Q, or, that's my disjunction, or I do not exercise regularly. So that's how I would say that one. Okay. Part B, if I eat junk food and do not exercise, then I am not healthy. If I eat, see where the parentheses is? If I eat junk food and do not exercise, that means I'm going to do this, then that. If I eat junk food, that's Q, and I do not exercise, then I am not healthy, like that. So it's just a different way to say what we said up there, going back and forth. And the last one, if I am healthy, if and only if I don't eat junk food and I exercise regularly. I am healthy, so I am healthy is P. If and only if, that's an arrow on both ends. What makes me healthy? I don't eat junk food, so not Q. And I exercise regularly, R. All right, so that's going from the English into the symbolic, and we did the symbolic into English. All right, the truth tables I'm going to save for our next lecture. Have a great day.